Since the beginning of this war, Russia has been constantly changing its objectives and narrative. And at this point, it is pretty certain that Russian army did not expect this level of resistance from Ukrainians and is struggling pretty much everywhere. For this reason, American President Joe Biden said that Putin has no way out of Ukraine and he simply does not know what he is doing at this moment. Why Russia has never clearly stated its goals? Why it never achieved any big success? Could this potentially mean that Putin will get desperate and do something unthinkable? And these are the main questions that we'll be talking about in my today's video. What's up, investors? Sean Mitchell and people of Reddit, it's the Russian Dude and this is your daily update on Russian-Ukrainian war as of Tuesday, May 10th. You can see the main events of the day to my right, along with the timestamps. If you've been closely following this war, you already know that the objectives of Russia change basically almost every single week. In the beginning, it was simply not to let NATO expand its territories. And that is why when Ukraine announced its intent to join NATO, Russia had to invade. The next main objective was basically to destroy all the Ukrainian Nazis and to prevent the spread of Nazism across Europe, which is kind of one of the main goals still. But then there was some crazy objectives like preventing America from becoming the world dominant country. There were many other smaller goals and objectives, but it will take me another video just to tell them all. But there is only one thing which unites everything, which is basically Russia has no idea what it's doing. And because of this, the President of America, Joe Biden, said during his fundraiser in Washington yesterday that he is afraid that Putin does not have a way out of Ukrainian war, which basically can be translated as Putin has no clue what he is doing and what he needs to do. It can also be interpreted as if Putin is standing before the intersection and both roads lead to nowhere. If you go left and announce the defeat, Russian people will not understand this and Western countries will no longer consider Russia a strong country, which basically means that the reputation of Putin and Russia will be ruined. But if you take another road and go right and you continue this war and maybe do even something unthinkable, the international community will never forgive you for this. So basically at this very moment there is no right decision for Putin to make. And that is why it makes it so scary to Biden, because of this unpredictability of Putin. The original goal of Russia was not to let NATO expand, and now we have Finland and Sweden probably joining the alliance. Another original goal was to destroy Ukrainian nationalism, and now we see the biggest union of Ukrainian people ever. Russian government was thinking that invading Ukraine will be so easy, but they have been struggling for the last couple of months with literally no progress. And that is why the narrative of Russia has been constantly changing. And the main reason for this is to announce some kind of simple goal, achieve this, and then declare victory. It was even assumed that this kind of victory will be achieved before the victory parade this May 9th, but nothing happened. Another reason why the goals have been changing so much recently, it is because in case Russia accepts the defeat, it will be not so humiliating. Because let's say, so if you're only at war with Ukraine and you lose at this point, this will be pretty embarrassing for Putin. But if he says that he's at war with entire world, in this case accepting defeat will be a little bit easier. All this is also confirmed by the defense intelligence of the United Kingdom, who are basically saying that yes, Russia indeed is trying to make at least some small kind of victory. And in order to accomplish this artificial victory, they unfortunately do not spare their own people. Which is just another reason why Russian forces has been failing so far. Because imagine this, if you have to send your best soldiers at first and they are killed and resisted, the people who follow them will be obviously less prepared. So what would you expect if the real soldiers failed and now you literally send people who had training only for 4 days? This obviously significantly decreases the morale of Russian soldiers and they also don't want to fight anymore. And by the way, if you like this style of daily news reporting, feel free to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Also, please make sure to check the link in the description if you want to support Ukraine with us. Thank you so much and let's continue. Welcome to another episode of ridiculous Russian propaganda. And in this picture we can see a mannequin which is dressed as Nazi somewhere in the small town of Russia called Kislovodsk. The idea behind this performance is so Russian kids can take airsoft guns and shoot this Nazistic mannequin. And according to the mayor of this small town of Kislovodsk, this will only increase the sense of patriotism among the younger generations of Russians. Because of significant resistance of the Ukrainian army, Ukraine now sees that the Russian army is not as scary as they thought, which is confirmed by the statement of Dmitry Kuleba, who is the member of Ukrainian negotiations team. He basically says that now the real goal of Ukraine has changed from the first one. In the very beginning, the goal of Ukraine was to resist the attacks of Russians and to push them away to the territories which they occupied before February 24th. But now Ukrainian forces see that it is very well possible to fight against Russians, which is now the new goal according to Dmitry Kuleba, is not just push Russians away to the territories which they occupied before the invasion, but to liberate the entire territory of Ukraine from Russians, which also includes the Crimean Peninsula and Donbass region. Dmitry Kuleba also added that this will be possible as soon as Ukraine starts receiving Western weapons, which is also confirmed by Alexei Arestovich, who was also mentioning that as soon as Ukraine accumulates all these offensive weapons, this is when they can start launching productive counterattacks. And just as a reminder, yesterday the president of the US, Joe Biden, signed the Lend-Lease Act, which now allows America to send weapons to Ukraine much faster and much cheaper. So even though it might not sound significant for some people, this Lend-Lease Act can be a very well turning point in this war. In this picture you can see the new normal life for the kids in Kharkiv, Ukraine. For the last couple of months, kids along with their parents have to hide in the subway stations, where as you can see in this picture they're also taking classes just so they're not behind on the education. But unfortunately this is not the single case. There are many Ukrainians, including kids, who are currently hiding in the subway stations across entire Ukraine because these are basically bomb shelters. In the past, the representative of the European Union, Joseph Borrell, mentioned that all these frozen Russian assets must be given to Ukrainians so that they can reconstruct their country after the war. But in response to that, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia, Sergey Lavrov, mentioned that this is a real-life robbery. He said that by doing this, Western countries are taking money from Russia and they're not even trying to hide this. And I mean, isn't this the perfect visualization of the saying that you can do anything you want with the country of Russian oligarchs, but as long as you do not touch their money? Plus, I think it is pretty obvious that if you destroy another country, you should literally pay for this. In this picture, we unfortunately can see a Russian widow who has received 5,000 rubles for her dead husband. According to the current exchange rate, 5,000 rubles is somewhere approximately $75, which just gives you a perspective how much human life costs in Russia. What's even worse, just a couple of weeks ago, widows were receiving 10,000 rubles, which is still not enough, but it was twice higher than it is today. Yesterday, Vladimir Zelensky stated that Ukraine has completed the second part of the application for Ukraine to join the European Union. He also said that his team did a magnificent job because other countries take years to fill this application, while Ukraine was only able to do it in a matter of weeks, maybe maximum months. Zelensky also mentioned that he hopes that the European Union will give Ukraine status of official applicant somewhere in the June of this year. Today, the Parliament of Lithuania unanimously acknowledged Russia to be a terroristic state. And the definition of this word is basically you either support other terroristic countries or you're performing terroristic actions yourself. In response to that, Russian representatives, who are obviously very unhappy about this, said that how can we be terrorists if we are the ones who defeated Nazistic Germany back in 1945 and now we are doing pretty much the same. There have been several reports that Sweden and Finland will jointly start their application to join NATO somewhere within the next couple of weeks, which is just another loss for Russia in this special military operation. Because if you remember, one of the first objectives was to not let NATO expand its territories, especially the ones which are getting closer to the border with Russia, such as for example the country of Finland, which is just one ferry boat ride away from Russia. The equivalent of YouTube, which is the Russian website RuTube, has been under hacker attack since yesterday, May 9th, and since then the website has been unavailable. And according to the management team, the big problem with this is that hacker got access to the original code of the website, which eventually he deleted along with the other major backup copies. Because of this, restoring access to the website will be practically impossible. They will kinda have to build everything from scratch, which is a pretty big problem for Russian content creators because YouTube does not pay you if you're from Russia. So eventually those people, they immigrated to RuTube, which is now pretty much deleted. In this map presented to us by the Defense Intelligence of the United Kingdom, we can see the current condition of the war as of May 10th. And as always, the main combat actions are concentrated in the east and south of the country. For the last couple of weeks, Russian forces were not able to advance basically anywhere, and Ukrainians were demonstrating significant resistance. Among the most major events that happened in the past was the time when Ukrainian army sank the Russian Navy flagship called Moskva. Because of this significantly reduced the firepower of Russian army in the south of Ukraine. In addition to that, Ukrainian forces were successfully liberating the northeast of the country, specifically in the area around the city of Kharkiv. And besides that, there were even counterattacks that happened in the territory of Russia, specifically in the city of Belgorod. And by the way, if you want to see more details, feel free to pause the video. Thank you so much for your attention, stay safe, check the link in the description, and see you tomorrow.